This guy, by the way, is one of the most tenacious and driven guys I think I've ever met. So thank you, Adam, for all you do. Without you, none of this here would be possible. So appreciate that. So as talent acquisition professionals, arguably, the most important skill that we can develop is our ability to communicate. Whether dealing with candidates or customers or any internal stakeholders to facilitate the hiring process. And that's why I'm very excited to introduce our keynote speaker, who is a professional speaker, a breakthrough communication coach, and of course, the founder of Say Things Better. Give it up for Lila Smith.
Thank you. Hi to so many of you who I already know. Those of you in the LinkedIn Live audience who are joining us, Michael Evans, Lacey Abaki, I am not Kyle Burt. Thank you for coming back. Thank you to so many of you who I already know and those of you who I've just met, Tom, Phyllis, Bill, the party favor, Sheila, Shirley, Adi, Lisa, Julian, Adam, Kyle, Molly, Lisa, Victoria, Craig, Julian, I'm just name dropping at this point, Kathy, Marquita, and Courtney, Adi. So, and the rest of you have yet to introduce yourselves to me, so what are you waiting for? After I'm done talking, I am gonna hang out and I would love to still meet everybody who's here. By the end of the night, I'd like to know everybody's names. I believe that we are already offline, so let's stay here. It is my intention always to connect. It is also my intention to affirm and to empower. And I'll be doing those things with my keynote tonight, and we'll get there. I think we're starting with the panel first, or we're starting with me. This is it right now? Oh, okay, so I'm a sucker for an awkward intro. So on the way here, I took Uber, which is what I do because I'm from New York and I don't have a driver's license in Texas, which eventually I'll get around to having. But I took Uber on the way here and I asked my driver, have you ever heard of MailChimp? Because I'm gonna be speaking tonight in a group of people, including the Director of Talent Acquisition for MailChimp, Courtney McAtee. And he's like, well, I don't know who that is, but I do use MailChimp, and I can tell you that it feels very empowering to the group that I use it for. And I was like, well, tell me more about that, tell me about your experience. Because it's always interesting to me if the customer, client, user experience is parallel or converse to whatever the employee experience is. Ideally, an organization will want those to be the same thing, that you want the culture inside an organization to feel like what the ideal customer experience is. And if it's not that, you're not going to be able to retain your top talent. And if it's not consistent with the values that are internal to your organization, eventually your customers are going to know. Because there's nothing louder than a disgruntled employee. There's nothing sadder than a missed opportunity to connect, in my opinion. So I was asking Alan, who is my Uber driver, and how do you know about MailChimp? How is it that you ended up using them? And how did they reach you? What was the communication? He said that they just make it feel so easy, and it made it feel like whatever their kind of business, whatever their kind of people, they had a tool for them. And they had something that would fit them, and that they were welcome there. And I thought, oh, it's such a beautiful thing to say as a customer about a software as a service product. And to say that I felt that we were welcome there. And I thought then, well, it's interesting that you would remark on that. Are there other businesses that have made you or your group feel unwelcome? And he said, yes. So I asked him what his business was that he used MailChimp for email marketing. And he said that he is a youth pastor for the largest LGBT church in the world. I forget the name of it. It's on my phone, which is plugged in the kitchen here at City Central. But I'll comment on the LinkedIn Live for it later. So if anybody wants to catch up or get more details, I'll share that with you. And he said that they were born out of the HIV/AIDS epidemic, where people were being excluded from the church or from a place of faith where they felt that they have never really been welcome, and then extremely unwelcome when they were deemed a health risk when there was not a lot of education about how you transmit that disease or virus. So at that time, they birthed this church where people could feel something that they weren't feeling anywhere else. Their communication was so intentional from the beginning because they wanted to protect the people who otherwise were at risk. And they wanted to embrace those people and make them feel at home. And they wanted to give them the freedom to have and live fully a vibrant life. And those were the words that he used, and I was like, oh God, what is a verb for to make vibrant? I need like Vern Yip. I need, I need my mother right now. So I called my mother to ask if there was a verb for to make vibrant. And she goes, oh, to energize, to revitalize. In my family, we have all the words. But we didn't have a word for to make vibrant, so we just decided it was to vibrantify or to vibrantize. But if anybody actually does have a verb for it, let me know, because that's one of the 3 verbs that church embraces in terms of the expression of their values. And they felt at home with MailChimp. So then I went, okay, I'm going to meet Courtney tonight. Let me see if what I see in person from her matches the customer experience and what is it that they're saying on their website. So I went to MailChimp.com, I scrolled down to the bottom, I hit careers, which is one of my favorite things to do when I'm looking at a brand's expression of who they think that they are, or who they want other people to think that they are. If they have put 0 energy into the communication on the careers page, and it looks very different than, look at all the things we have to sell you, then I know that they're full of BS and they're never going to get my money. It's something that I look for that probably nobody else does until I say this to all of LinkedIn, and now everybody's going to their favorite website and looking on careers and saying like, oh, how do you talk about it? What's in your job descriptions? But when I looked at the careers page, it didn't start with job descriptions on MailChimp.com. It started with an affirmation. So my heart leapt out of my chest, and I'm like, to affirm, to affirm, to affirm, it's everywhere. And I said, wait, it's not even just to affirm, it's to validate. It's saying, we take you, oddballs or misfits or artists and engineers and thinkers and doers. It was like very inclusive, and I thought to include, to validate. It's all of these things, but the further down the page I got, and the more consistent I saw that they were in this message, how beautifully welcoming of all different kinds of people, I thought it's not just to affirm, it's not just to tolerate different kinds of people there. They're actively going out and saying, you, whatever it is that you have, we want it, as long as it's part of your heart and soul and spirit. And if you're the extra weird kind, we extra want you here. So come and be part of our organization. It's to embrace. It felt like a hug of the spirits that have otherwise been othered. And it gave me a very clear idea of what it feels like to be at MailChimp. And I thought, like, how beautiful that I'm experiencing this moment in a car with Alan, the youth pastor at the largest LGBT church in the world, to have this moment of very clear brand clarity, because the experience of the values of this organization was the same because the impact was the same. Communication is kinetic, it moves. If it comes from here and goes somewhere else, it has an action, it has a feeling, it has a velocity. And you can name that action and decide how it goes. If you're a pitcher and you're throwing something, you decide if it's going to be a fastball or a curveball or a floater or whatever. That's it. That's it for like my sports terminology. But I know that you choose before you throw the ball how you want it to move through the air and where you want it to land. And we can do that with our communication too. When I was an actress in New York City and around the country, I performed here in Dallas a bunch of times and at over 100 cities in the United States with various shows. Actors choose verbs before we walk on stage. We have a character to honor and their objectives from one scene to the next, which, according to the Say Things Better method, are from one communication event to the next. It's basically the same thing, that you're here in life in this room, and you'll be here in life in a different room somewhere else with different people, different rules, different expectations. But within this one scene, my character has one objective, and that other character is set up as kind of an adversary, because in theater you want dramatic conflict because it's interesting to watch. You want the things that are not going to work well together. I want this and they want that, and let's find all the ways that those are different so that we can give the audience some reason to sit on the edge of their seats and bite their nails. And pretty much the opposite of the experience you want to have if you're in an office and working collaboratively. So we were not trying to find dramatic conflict in life. We're trying to find dramatic confluence and agreement and connection in all the places where we can come together with the people who are meant to be our communication partners. If you're representing an organization, you have a responsibility to them and their values to find the people to come into MailChimp and make all of those people, the oddballs and misfits and engineers and artists who have felt otherwise othered, and make those people feel at home. Not just because you're one of them, or maybe you're not one of them, but maybe you're somebody who supports those people. You're an ally of the odd. I consider myself both odd and an ally of other odd people. So I would fit in well at MailChimp, and I know that because I can say to a recruiter at MailChimp, here's my experience of your communication on your website. Here's my experience of your communication as a customer. And I've been a MailChimp customer too. Say Things Better runs our emails from MailChimp. And this is not a paid ad for MailChimp. But I am open for sponsorship opportunities. So that'll be $1. But the experience that I have as a customer, the experience that I have coming in and interviewing with somebody there, I want to feel that. If I'm that person that MailChimp really wants, they want that weird person with the crazy ideas who's going to be the next one to make them the first to market with something. And I could be that person. I'm the first person that I know who's taking simple theater tools and bringing them to a talent acquisition conference. And it's because I feel like I've been embraced by my people. Most of them are in part of the LinkedIn community. Some of them are people who've hired me, people at organizations like the Dallas Mavericks and Merck, so not traditionally weird companies. But I'm a weird person, and I'm like, this is what you get when you experience me. I have got a full plate of pickles. I'm not eating something different just because I think that other people might judge my pickleness. I am full pickle. To pickle could be one of my verbs for this evening. And I said to Adam, who organized this event, I'm worried about pickle breath. And he said, one of the best things about live streaming is that they can't smell your pickle breath. And I was like, you know what? You're for me. We are peeps. We are communication partners because you support my pickling. And that's like kind of to pickle. If that was one of the verbs, you would understand that. You'd be like, you got it. To pickle, I'm on board with that. I support your right to pickle. And if I went to MailChimp as a candidate and I said, my verbs, my values in verb form so that they can remain active in all of my communication. When I pitch it, when I throw it from here to there, it goes from here to here because I seek first to affirm, to connect, and then to empower. So those are my verbs, my values in verb form. I'm guessing that MailChimps include to embrace, also to, I think that one of the things I saw on the website was to democratize technology. So something like to enable, something like, and then also to secure, to protect, to validate, something regarding security. But they're also really funny and they're casual. And their communication made me feel like, well, it's not going to be too buttoned up, so maybe too welcome or too host. So I'd love to hear from Courtney what you think the verbs would be. But just some background on this, when we go on stage as our character, we have that other person on stage. We want something from them. We want to give, get, or do something to that person in order to achieve our objective as that character in that scene. Regardless of what the playwright has written, our character doesn't know that that happens yet. So we're assuming that we're going after it like we're going to get this yes. So we choose verbs to impact our communication and to guide the way that it moves from us to that other person. And we choose those verbs based on what we think is going to get our character what they want, what their objective is. So we might start with to comfort, or we might start with to intimidate, or to distance. But there's got to be a reason for it. And almost never does somebody have a reason to distance while they still have lines. If you're talking at all, there has to be a reason why you need that person to still be there listening to you, including if you're putting them down, including if you're being negative. So we're all positively motivated, and it's just our jobs as actors to find out what that positive motivation is and put it into words so we can be intentional about communicating that way. If you are talent professionals, or if you are recruiters, or you're in-house, or you're directors of talent acquisition, or VPs or executives in talent acquisition, it's your job to make sure that you understand whether it's your company that you are internal to, or a company that you represent, like Adi does recruiting for IT, business development, and it's going to be your responsibility to understand what is it going to feel like for the potential candidates that you're talking to work there. Is it going to be a fit? If I think about a company like MailChimp, and I think about who wouldn't be a fit, who would be uncomfortable there, it's nothing against them to not be a fit there. But you want to check what those values are, because if somebody walks into a place like MailChimp, where it's like a party, but everybody's working really hard and everybody's weird, and you have like not Taco Tuesdays, but you have like Tempeh Tuesdays or something, and it's just a place where that happens, and you're not used to that, and you really like routine, and you value predictability and stability and tradition, and that's the kind of culture where you feel you thrive. Maybe you'll come to a place like MailChimp and you don't trust that your kind of work will be accepted and wanted there, that you'll be overlooked because you're not loud and weird. It's going to be on the recruiter to either find a way for them to understand how they'll be validated and express that to their future manager, or to say, you know what, you're right, it's not a fit and you belong someplace more traditional. And actually I have those opportunities too, so let's wait. Understanding the values fit of an organization is how you know that somebody's going to be with you long term. Values are where we break. You can underuse somebody's strengths. You can take some of their best skills and put them on a shelf to collect dust. But if someone feels that their values are being violated, that's when we break. We break as people in relationships that way. We break as employees from companies that otherwise would have our dedication. And we break inside. And when we go inside and we start talking down to ourselves, our work suffers. If you don't have a full values activation of your communication, of your work, of everything that you do all the time at your organization, you're going to feel like you're unwelcome, like you're unwanted, like you're unseen. So why bother? Why bother doing the work? Why bother staying? Why bother maintaining ethical practices? People start distancing themselves from everything about a company, including the employee handbook and policies. But it happens way before that. It happens at the time of acquisition. I say acquisition because that's the word in talent acquisition, not because I think that humans can be acquired. Let me just clarify that. But it is kind of an interesting balance because you are in trade. One of the things that I wanted to talk to this group about was the candidate experience. Because so many of the people that are watching right now in the LinkedIn audience, including my friend Steve Sullivan and some others, they were like, gosh, you know, empathy is missing. People not understanding that we're a person here. And if you have a role that includes acquisition in a human-focused title, you have to be intentional about empathizing with the other person on the other end in order to balance that out, so that it doesn't feel like you are only in it for a transaction. And either that person, that candidate, can suit the role that the person who's paying you wants or not. And if not, then they're not worth anything to you. Because it's still a human being. We've learned, at least in the United States of America now, haven't we, that people are not to be acquired or treated as trade? We've had enough history. We've been slave traders. We've been imperialists, we've gone in, it's not like this has stopped, but we at least are coming out and being vocal about the fact that that's not acceptable. We have amendments to the Constitution about it. I carry that Constitution with me in my bag because I'm proud of the progress that we've made and the conversation that it encourages. So that kind of conversation is something that I think we should continue to have everywhere, because these kinds of little micro incidents where people have exposure to a brand, you have an opportunity, a positive opportunity, to treat them like a customer, because you know what your values are as an organization. If your values are to embrace, then you embrace that person whether they're going to fit there or not, so that when they leave, they're still, you know what, I wasn't a great fit to work there, but that person is, and they made me feel held. So of course I'm going to promote them. If your values are, let's say you're Gatorade, maybe your values are to fuel, to quench, to champion. Imagine a client hiring you to bring in someone with the champion within. And you talk to people and try and find out what is the kind of champion within them that they have. What flavor, fuel is the fit here? What do they have to bring to the table? And then you find out that it's not exactly the kind of fuel you're looking for this role. Do you no longer champion that person? Do you no longer fuel that person? Do you no longer quench that person with your communication? Like a response to an email might quench their thirst for just knowing where we are here, what's the status. And I know that it's hard because you have tons of these kinds of inquiries all day. Julie, we've talked about this, that like these things that come across your desk they need to be filled, like by the time they actually come to you, they need to be filled 3 months ago, right? And then it's like, where are you? I need this person. So I understand the urgency is there, but on the other end of this transaction is a person, not a parcel. And your values are what can root you and your communication into connection with that other person. So in the candidate experience, think of them as a customer, think of them as already an employee on your team, and think of them as somebody that has the opportunity to be immersed in a brand experience and what that's going to feel like. I choose verbs because verbs are what we feel, right? Everybody says actions speak louder than words. So if I use the line from the video I put up on LinkedIn yesterday, drizzle the vinaigrette, it does not matter if that is in a job description. Your entire job is to drizzle the vinaigrette. I could be talking about some IT thing that I have no idea about. It would mean just as much to me. I'm sure that there are recruiters who are new to technical recruiting who find that these kinds of terminologies, and by the way, they're changing every day. So it's not like even if you know what you're talking about, you always know what you're talking about every day. And that's okay. You have to look it up. You do have to know something about it. But a lot of the times, these words won't have a deep connection to you because you're not doing the action itself yourself. You're just communicating what is needed for this job, for this role, for this position. So maybe that job is to drizzle the vinaigrette. But you have somebody in front of you that you're trying to find a fit for that's going to feel like round peg, round hole. Star-shaped peg, we'll make a star-shaped hole if we're at MailChimp. You know, we'll build a star-shaped chair for you. We'll build a starship for you. And you have to give that person that feeling, to starship. Drizzle the vinaigrette, you know, or like stand on one leg and say it. Drizzle the vinaigrette, you know, you can sing it. Whatever it is that you do that activates those values for you in your communication. It's an opportunity and it's also a responsibility because you sit at a nexus of communication that nobody else does. You sit between the company and their brand values, the company and the people who actually work there, and the company and their future customers, clients, and users. And you're the person in between who has to treat all of them the same. Verb your values is a way that you can do that. So if you really just think about asking somebody, what do you stand for? Give it to me in 3 verbs. Lila Smith from Say Things Better has told me that I must ask you this. You can blame it on me. You can name drop and say that girl Lila with the boots and the pickles told me that I should ask you, what do you stand for? And what's important to you that an organization stand for? Give it to me in verb form so that I can see if those feelings are a match. You know that if one of the verbs for MailChimp is to embrace and one of mine is to affirm, it's a close enough fit. If I'm all like, well, to instruct, to equip, to interview, it might feel less warm than those other values. So it's just something that you can imagine. If somebody was doing that to you, how would you feel? It's a context that we all share because the human experience is not relative, it's universal. In every language, in every culture, at every company, you know what it feels like to distance. You know what it feels like to educate. You know what it feels like to control. You know what it feels like to focus. I don't do well in environments where I feel like someone is constantly trying to focus me, because a lot of strategic is my #1 strength. So like, I got this, you know? But the way it's gonna show up to other people is I'm all out here and I'm friendly and I'm bubbly and I have all these ideas and I'm talking to people, and then at the end of the day, I'm like, here's what you gotta do. So if you're outcomes driven, like, that's fine. But if I feel all day like somebody is trying to focus me with their communication, I'm like, yo, please just give me a minute to go and talk to people and walk around the room and laugh and connect, and I will get you the best team and the best army, people to support you and your brand forever. I will get you diehards. I will rally the entire world around your cause because it's also mine. But you have to make sure that that fit is there. So that's all I really had to say about Verb Your Values and this process, but we have time for just a couple of questions. There may be some from the LinkedIn Live audience, but otherwise I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear from you, Courtney, what you think the MailChimp values are in verb form.
I mean, you stole all of mine.
Well, come up. This is Courtney McAtee from MailChimp.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm just so gracious to hear that that was your experience. Very
Yeah.
serendipitous.
And Alan's. Alan, the Uber driver, also.
I'll need his information.
Yeah, I'll get it.
I think we can sum it up in 2 verbs for MailChimp. It is to democratize. We are in business to democratize tools for the small business owner, for your mother-in-law who makes jewelry out of her garage, or the youth pastor who wants to get communication out to his community, or the very successful $1 million small business who's doing great things. So we want to make all those tools available for everyone. But our, I think, second biggest verb is to empower. We are not going to, do it for you. We want to give you the tools and then empower the user, empower our employees to do their best work, empower the users to do their best work. So those would be our 2 for sure.
I love it. And now having sat, I'm going to sit down. And now, Courtney, having sat here and listened to me for a little while, and I see your brain going, especially next to your Aunt Kathy. So it's like the 2 McAtee brains in tandem here. How do you see it in practice? What do you think you'll do with your verbs now that you'll go back to the office, and then what? Do you want me to give my mic to her? You can speak up. It's okay. We're all family here, right?
And a lot of this, too, I'm going to touch on the panel, so I don't want to spoil. No. Sorry, Lila, ask me that question one more time.
What are you going to do about it? Yeah. Take your verbs, go to the office, and then what?
I think the way that I bring those verbs to my everyday, empower is something that I really drive home with my team. I love to give them the tools, right? Democratize the system, the recruiting wheel, if you will, that can be really big and arduous at times. How do we bring that back to basics and empower our teams to do their best work, really get out of their way and let them do that, and then to just create the space for that connection, remove the obstacles so that they can show up authentically, so that they can treat each candidate as their customer, treat each hiring manager as their customer, to make sure that that experience is very seamless, and that we are showcasing that user experience in a very linear fashion, no matter what interaction we're having.
Are there other questions or people who'd like an example or free coaching at this time? Because you do have me, and I have been fully paid for the evening. And lots of pickles.
Any questions?
Yes.
Yes.
Sheila. Just introduce yourself on the mic.
I'm Sheila,
Hi, Sheila.
and this is my second time hearing you, and you're awesome.
Thank you.
And is there a key question that you would suggest a candidate ask in an interview, other than the obvious of getting to the match of the values?
I think that's going to depend on the candidate and what their priorities are, what's going to be important to that person. I can answer for myself, but I'm not really looking for a job right now. But when I was looking for an opportunity to create something. So I didn't want to just come in and do something that I would inherit and then leave it at that. I wanted to go in and, I am a creator by nature. I will create programs that will change the world or an organization if I'm given the chance to start from scratch on something or to take something and completely change it into something way more powerful and maximized. And if I'm not doing that, I feel underutilized. So I would ask if that kind of opportunity existed in whatever role for me. Like, will there be an opportunity to create, or am I just there to execute? Some people are way more comfortable implementing, and ideation is not one of their top strengths. I would suggest to all candidates for jobs that you go and get your UMAP done. It's YOUMAP. This is also one of the top tools for recruiting, for hiring managers, for managers of any kind. It highlights your strengths, your values, your preferred skills, and your personality-driven interests. Like, I know that I am artistic and then enterprising on this ONET score thing, and that makes me the performer. But that artistic part is first, and then enterprising, which tells me that first I must create. And it tells me that just right there in this report. It's, everybody does these assessments to understand who we are, what the fit is going to be, but UMAP is really more holistic. So I would say have your resume because you need it anyway. People need those keywords in applicant tracking systems because we don't have unlimited hours in the day, and that is what we have right now. So I would say, don't complain about that, but add to it. Add your UMAP. Add something very clear and simple for somebody looking at it to understand. It's intuitive. I know that there are a bunch of people in the audience right now who have them. Thomas, is that Tomas? Tomas has one. I know Tomas's UMAP. Molly has hers. Your strengths, your values, your skills, the ones that you like using, not the ones that burn you out, that you happen to be good at, but the ones that you're like, oh, I love portraying images. And that will tell you what your fit will be in a role and also in an organization. So bring that with you in addition to your resume and ask the questions based on that UMAP, based on what's going to be most important to you and your experience. But we always break on values. So you want to know that the strengths will be a fit, and that you'll be able to use or obtain some new skills, but values have got to be number one. So if it's already covered in the interview, you don't have the question about that, which is the whole goal of this, is to have the people on the other side of that table very clear on what the values experience is within an organization.
Thank you very much for that question. We've got time for one more. Okay. One more for Lila.
What are the items we should leave off the resume and in the interview not ask because of legal ramifications?
Oh, that's a question for somebody who knows that stuff. Sorry. You can probably find 50 of them in this audience. But I can talk to you about how your communication feels in terms of the legalities of what you may and may not ask in an interview. Literally almost anybody else in this room besides me. Sorry. One of the things that I've learned about myself from my UMAP is that it's really totally okay to be killer at what you're killer at and then pass the rest to somebody else. And it's the best way to collaborate too within an organization is to say, this is what I bring to the table, but then look at this person over here, they know exactly that. I don't have to make it up. I know some stuff because I've hired people myself for the e-commerce department that I used to run at DNA Footwear in New York City, but it's been years, they've changed. That was in New York, this is Texas. I know that there are some rules about you can't ask age, you can't ask are you pregnant, you can't ask about any kind of protected class questions. But other than that, I think that you could probably get a better answer from someone else. So I'll refer you to literally anybody else here besides me. I have lots of information about intention, acting, and pickles. And verbs. Verbs, I have words. I have lots of words.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Lila Smith.
Thank you. Thank you, LinkedIn, for coming and joining.
And Lila, where can people connect with you, find you, follow you? Tell us all that if you would.
Oh, okay. I just want to be I get around, So on Instagram, I'm Lila Lasagna. and Say Things Better. It's LILALASAGNA. Also on LinkedIn, it's linkedin.com/in/LILASMITH. Lila Smith. You can find Say Things Better. You can go to saythingsbetter.com. You can come to my house in Dallas and bring me presents. You will always be welcome if you come bearing gifts. 4910. Okay, I'll give it to you later. You can ask Bill. He'll give it to you.
One more time for Lila.
Thank you.